Welcome to a Comfort Zone Retrospective on Kismet Radio in partnership with These Days. We're your hosts, Tara and Pedro, and we're broadcasting from Studio Shapes tonight. This July, Saba celebrated the 10th anniversary of his cult classic Comfort Zone, an ambitious 14-track project that ultimately defined his musical journey. To celebrate the occasion, These Days and Kismet published an oral history of the tape, which saw Pedro speak to 17 contributors and friends who were around during the creation of Comfort Zone. We thought it would be cool for These Days and Kismet to also do an audio piece, so here we are with a Comfort Zone retrospective, and this is our last episode. With you,
I'm excited.
Saba.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so just as a reminder, recording, so if you can silence your phones and keep your voices to a whisper. How are you tonight, Saba?
I am phenomenal. How are you?
Oh, I'm good too. I'm good.
I'm pretty good too.
Yeah.
Excited. I love how an album that talks about you being awkward and then finding yourself, we're starting the conversation a little bit awkward, you know? Hopefully we build up and warm up until we
But
find
this time
ourselves.
it's not me though.
Oh no.
I didn't do
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that.
That's 100% me. Sure. Well, I kind of wanted to start with asking you about what was the inspiration of the album, and when you were just a teenager creating this, like what was your idea of what Comfort Zone should become?
All right. Comfort Zone for me at the time. Wait, I wanted to give a disclaimer. Before I tell any story, I want to give a disclaimer that I'm trying to reflect on how I felt like 12 years ago. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's going to be some slight inaccuracies that maybe I've forgotten a little bit. Maybe
Pedro will correct you. He's an expert.
Facts. But so this is like a to the best of my ability to recount type of conversation.
Totally.
I felt like Comfort Zone was, to me, I felt like I was 16 when I thought of Comfort Zone. I was 16 and I had I was talking to this girl at the time, and I was just really quiet, and it didn't work out, and I was like in my head like, this is only because you didn't really open up about anything at any point. You never really extended an invitation to yourself. And I wasn't like bummed out about it. Like it was cool. But it did kind of send me on this like self-arrival kind of like journey. And from there I kind of recognized how me wanting to pursue my dream of being an artist, I would have to break down that barrier of myself. Like I would have to open up. I would have to be more comfortable. So Comfort Zone was where I feel like that was the light bulb that went off. Like, I'm gonna make it an album, or I'm gonna make it a mixtape, a project, whatever you call it. Yeah.
But how did you have enough motivation to actually make the thing? I mean, it was a great undertaking, in retrospect.
I mean, I knew I would make it because I wanted to make it. Like, if you want to do something enough, I think, I don't know, like, it wasn't my first project, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
It was like, it was really it was probably the 5th project that I had actually created, maybe the 6th. So I felt pretty confident that I can actually pull off making a project. I think the thing for me was I had a direction for what I wanted it to be musically. That was more the issue. It wasn't that I wouldn't be able to make Comfort Zone, but it was that like I'm like, damn, like some of what I want this to sound like, my music don't sound like that. So I need to meet people who can produce that way. I need to, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's why some of the collaborators and stuff, which I think that was the thing that I was like more in my head, like, how am I going to figure that part out? But there's so many different versions of songs that I thought were for Comfort Zone from even before this era. You know, it was like I I don't know. I had my sight on that project, and I just kind of committed to it.
Speaking about you trying to work with collaborators that can make that sound that you had in your head possible, what was kind of like the musical perspective that you were trying to implement to this project? What were the sounds, the genres that you were trying to infuse ComfortZone with?
All right. Well, during that time, Chicago has a sound almost. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like I'm obviously from the west side of Chicago, and around that time we got like bopping, we got all type of like musical culture to base like their reference points, I guess is what I'm saying. And then you got the drill shit going crazy. So I think to me it was kind of trying to find my role in all of it, because obviously I felt like I had something to offer, but I think it for me, ComfortZone, like the sound of that was to kind of I don't know, I think Chicago was at the heart of what I saw for it musically. Like, I knew I wanted instrumentalists, which that was like a big difference between this project and any of my projects before this, where it was mostly like production, samples, computer shit. Whereas this, I'm like, nah, I would love to have somebody actually play the keys. I would love to have somebody play the bass. So I think just navigating Chicago, meeting more people, that helped with that. But I don't know, there's so many like to me, a lot of the shit Cam was doing on there was like nods to like late registration, like, you know what I'm saying, like the old Ye kind of feel, while also kind of being like modernized for that time. You know, we talking about 2014, so I use modernized, what's the word you use? Retrospectively, but radioactively, and yeah, I mean that's kind of the best way I could describe it. Like, it was kind of me like growing my own kind of palette, because none of my shit before ComfortZone really sounded like ComfortZone.
And that's the most interesting thing about ComfortZone to me, is that every song you tried something new, and like, world building. But I think like it just felt like one big experiment that you kind of just pulled off.
Experiment is a perfect word. I told Damon that I don't know. It's like their projects, their albums, their, whatever words you assign to them. But to me, really, they feel like experiments. Because it's like, you don't really know what happens when you mix these drums with these chords and then put this type of song. It's like you just kind of keep shooting at it until you get something that make you feel something. That's kind of my process. So I think experiment is a perfect word for it.
And I think that there was one part on the oral history, was it 401k, where he was talking about, bringing in, like, there's two sides to Chicago's music that we see in the media, like obviously drill, and then maybe that's like neo-jazz. Like, you were trying to straddle both.
Maybe yeah. That's, I think a version of me wanted that.
Yeah.
A version of me wanted that. And I think a version of me knew that I could maybe influence it, but not necessarily become it. Like, I didn't see myself as the bridge for both sides. I just knew that I was influenced by both sides.
It felt like your interpretation of what that, those influences could be.
Yeah. And I think, at the end of the day, all I got is my perspective. Like, this is my version of a song like this. This is my version of this type of story. This is my version of this type of beat. So I think, I don't know. The two sides to Chicago shit at that time was definitely like really prominent in how Chicago was being viewed. And it kind of, I don't know that that's ever gone away, but it's like being a Chicagoan, it felt so inaccurate that it makes me want to go over there. You know what I'm saying? It made me want to make some shit like that. Like, so I think that might have also been a influence in terms of like songs like 401k and shit like that.
One of the one of my favorite anecdotes from the oral history was you speaking about making time zone or recording time zone in your basement and having to do a mumble flow, not out of an artistic choice, but rather circumstance, because you didn't want to wake up your mom or your family because it was late night and you're in the basement just trying to make music.
Real rap raw, nigga.
Yeah.
Real
question
shit.
about that is, what made you, I guess, kind of keep it into the effect of like experimenting? Is that something that was like, this sounds too raw, not to?
To me, the shit sounded good. It was like I didn't hear the fan.
I didn't hear the fan.
I didn't hear that shit, so it was like it was fine to me. And I think it's like, I think part of my artist brain, it's like you're making things with the knowledge that it's gonna be perceived a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm knowing that this is kind of like, this the first song on my first project to a lot of people. I'm like, it's, I'm setting the standard for what they can get from the rest of this. And to me, it just felt honest. It was like, this shit sound good to me, so this is what it is. And now this is the standard that we set. So this is the measuring, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is how you measure this. Like, it's not, I don't know. I think that shit, like, that was also the first music I ever got mixed and mastered too. So it was like hearing my shit that clean sounding was like, oh, who cares that there's a fan? Like, who cares?
I didn't notice
that shit sound good.
I didn't hear the fan, so I mean, I think
I still can't hear it. Ever since you said that, I've been trying to hear a fan in the background.
Yeah.
Why did you choose Time Zone as your first song?
That was a choice that happened. I was going to the Bay at that time, and I played that music it was like kind of just being at one of the homies' house, and it was like a bunch of people over there all the time and shit. So there was like a lot of situations where I would be in a room just playing music, and that was the newest song, and we was looking for a place to put it, and then the room kind of was like, fuck it, make it the first song, like open with that shit. And I had never considered that, but at the same time it made sense. So I don't know, sometimes it's
why though?
Why did it make sense?
Yeah.
String intro into the pitched vocal, all you niggas know since the shorty I've been showing how I'm different. Like, to me it was like, this is the story that I'm about to tell for the next 14 songs in some way. And it also, to me, I like starting my stories in the middle of the story. Like, so opening up with a song like that, to me, it's like, it's not an intro, it's just a Saba song. Like, this sounds like what you get from my music. To me, I felt like I was doing, like, there was the chords, there was the textured vocal, like with the layers and shit, and then there was the rhythm of the verse that was like engaging to me. But I don't know, it felt honest in that way. And then it became a thing that I'm like, what song is the most, like, that's kind of a method that I continue to do, where I'm thinking of like Care For Me, like opening that album with like Busy Sirens. It's like, it's not like, hey, this is the album Care For Me. It's like, we're in the middle of it, I'm so alone. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like just starting with what you have to say as opposed to building up to it.
That's super interesting, and I love hearing your perspective on all these like behind the scenes. Like, throughout this series, Tara and I have been just like nerding out, but I guess like through our own, like, as a fan, what we perceive that it's like your intent. And there's like certain things that, it validates what we've been saying, but also certain things that I hadn't thought about before, like you starting your albums in the middle. Another thing that we had been talking about on Burnout and really throughout your catalog, there are a lot of nods to like cars and vehicles, and using that as like a context of like your situation, or if you're feeling good. Like, again, Burnout, not only is it a reference to how you were feeling after dropping out, but also to one of your favorite video games. In the music video, we see you in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any truth to that feeling of like cars being an important part of your life and how you, there's also whip, you know, in this album?
Yeah. I mean, I guess like we spend so much of our life in transit. Like, so to me, it's like, it's like a country singer making a song about their horse. Like, you feel me? It's like, nigga, I spend hella time in my car. Like, that's just, and then at that time, I'm on the bus. So it's like, I'm 18. All I want is a fucking car. Like, yeah, I don't know. Burnout. Yeah, I'm glad you brought out Burnout the video game, because that's why that phrase was on my mind. It's not necessarily what I'm talking about in the song, but it definitely is why I know that people say like you're burned out when certain scenarios, whatever you would describe as burnout. But yeah, without that video game, I wouldn't even know that was some shit that people said.
That's very cool. And then later in, you're using a lot of really lush chords throughout this project, and I think also to Tara's point a little bit, it's more in the sonics that you're using drill and like with the drums and the hi-hats. One where I thought it was really cool how, to your point, like Kanye West, it's just like when you're working with Camo B and For Y'all, that's like a big record. What is that? Is that Cam?
Yeah, that's Cam. That's Cam and Cam,
Nascent, and Ben Free.
And Ben Free, yeah.
What did it feel like
he
to
memorized that shit?
I told you.
I memorized it like 10 years ago.
Right on, sir. Right on,
You know more
sir.
than anybody in this room.
Yeah.
I just want to throw this out there that I knew that too.
But what did it feel? That feels such a big record. What did it feel like to make something like that and be able to do it at 18, 19?
That was the song that I was the most pressed about when I dropped my hard drive, because that was the one that I'm like, damn. Like you just said, 3 people produced that. How am I gonna get them to redo that beat? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like that was how I'm gonna get Erin to re-sing her chorus. Like, it's these the questions I got. It's not like it's such an obvious answer at that time. It's not like, oh, we're gonna work with Saba, who is, he has people that are listening to his music, and you know what I'm saying. It's like people who are working with me at that time. It feels like, maybe their perception would be different, but it feels like them taking a chance on doing something with me. Like they don't know the result of this. So having to ask for people's time multiple times felt like me being a burden. Like it felt like it was burdensome. And I knew that everybody was like doing shit that motherfuckers had motion at that time. Like where I'm like, damn, am I gonna ever be able to get in a room with this motherfucker again? Like I just got him to do hella beats and then I lost him. So I felt like an idiot. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, damn, I lost my shit. But I knew I would have to just redo it. And then at that point, it's like, okay, well, if I'm redoing it, it has to be better, because I know that that's my only option. So that became my mindset. I don't even know if it's better or not. I'm just like, that's what I married myself to. Like, it's gonna be better.
My favorite verse guest appearance on your project is Fresh Waters on Scum. Shout out Fresh.
Yeah.
I wish he was here. Leading up to it, you mentioned him a number of times, not directly by name, but he just feels like he has this mythical presence. You know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously started Pivot Gang with y'all, right, but he's incarcerated at the time. Right. Can you tell us more about recording that verse while he was in jail, and why it was important for you to have him on that song?
I don't even think I thought about it that deeply. Like, to me, it wasn't necessarily like he was on that song related to the contents of what he's saying or what I'm saying. He was on that song because that's where I felt like the break needed to happen. Like, I'm like, you've like almost like an interlude where it's like, before we get into the next song, just like, it's like when you go and you sniff a bunch of cologne and they got the coffee bean, like that, to me, it was like, you got to smell the coffee bean before you do the next song, because you got to set the scene. Like, and yeah, at that time, like, anytime he called us and we were in the studio, we would hook him up to the aux and record what was happening, because the whole time, like, it's like all of this shit is happening in our lives that we dreamt about, and it's really early in our careers, to be clear, but it was like by the time it was starting to happen, he was gone for years of it. So it's like we were just doing our best to keep him included, keep him a part of it, and you know that helped the time go by, you know. But for us, it felt right. Like, you know, this nigga helped us build everything that we are doing. So why wouldn't he be included in some way, even if he's not physically able to get in the booth, you know? And plus, great verse.
Oh, amazing. It's my favorite for a reason.
I also remember that this was probably the quote. Scum is one of those songs where, you know, you're seeing what the media is portraying as like the two sides of Chicago, and you're trying to really, which I think you do a really great job throughout your catalog, like being able to show all sides of a person, you know, truly dimensionalize human beings on their day to day.
This motherfucker said I do a great job of dimensionalizing human beings. And I appreciate you for saying that.
Thanks. My wife is an English teacher at CPS, so she's been pushing me to do vocab words. That was one of them.
Hey, come on, wife.
But yeah, that was one of those songs, right, where you're trying to, like, you know, show a fuller picture of what you're seeing, you know, talked about.
Yeah, I think I think really what I'm doing, to be like honest, is like, yeah, but that to me is a byproduct of what I'm actually doing. Because what I'm actually doing is trying to find my space in it all. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm still searching for myself within this landscape. So I think with me telling certain stories, like the one on Scum, for instance, is like a lot of this shit, like, I'm in school when I'm making it. So it's a lot of like school reference and just observations that I feel like at my age at the time I had made. And, you know, I was kind of in a position where I'm kind of in most of these scenarios like one of the smarter kids in the classes in terms of grades and shit. And I'm like, this shit doesn't matter though. Like, because I'm just looking at what is happening geographically where I'm at, and I'm like, what? I don't get what I'm supposed to do with having this be a thing that I'm working towards. I don't understand how this is supposed to benefit me. And I think on that album, I'm kind of like trying to make sense of that. And yeah, as a byproduct of that, it is this social commentary kind of like zoomed out kind of song where you get to get the perspective of somebody who's right there. But for me, it wasn't even like that was something that also happened. That wasn't necessarily that wasn't the light bulb.
When you were putting together the album, like the track listing, did you see like the narrative that you were, because I think a large part of like what Pedro and I have been talking about is like the narrative of you know, becoming this, or starting like a shy kid and becoming like a young man, essentially, you know?
Yeah.
And I mean, I know you recorded over like 3 years, 3 years.
Yeah.
You know, so that is at that time formative.
Yeah.
So
nah, it's cool. It's like, to me, I've been recording music damn near my whole life. Since I was 9, I started recording music. I'm 30. So there's so much music that I have recorded where it's like I can listen to what I was thinking at almost any given time of my life. And yes, to answer your question, like I can listen and hear that there's a narrative in it. I think sometimes for me as an artist, like, you know what I'm saying, I'm a musician. So I think I'm talking about myself on so many of these songs where it's like, I don't know if this ever happened to y'all, but like, just like, you ever look at yourself and then like it's like 2 hours later and you're like, damn, what did I look like? Like, it's like that, listening to myself almost. where I'm like, damn, but what am I saying? Like, what does that mean? I know what it means to me, but what does it mean to somebody else? And you go in this like feedback loop. And I think the thing that helped me in that instance to complete the narrative is in the music. Because I'm like, the story that the beats are telling is also in line with what I'm talking about. But that's how I know when the album is done. I think it's like the songs only give me so much information because the lyrics, you know, I'm one of those people, I can always pick it apart. I can always make it better. I can always change it. I can always grow. Every day I'm growing. So it's like, that was cool yesterday, bro. Like today, different decision. But in the music, it's like, that shit still sound good tomorrow.
I was about to say, you know, you went back and changed it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Had to.
Yeah. Did you feel like you were making a classic as you, and I'm only saying that because on a song you basically said, I'm making a classic.
You got to speak it into existence. Like I believed that.
The manifesting.
I didn't feel like that was my only goal. Well, I'm not gonna say it's my only goal, but that was like my biggest goal, was to put everything that I had, resource wise and mental capacity, was to put everything that I had into something and just see whatever that meant. So yeah, I felt like I was making a classic. I didn't know how it would be perceived, but I knew how I thought about it, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like you really gathered your community when you made this and like built the community. Like how did that feel by the end of it? You know, that you had, you know, this like network of artists or like, you know, people who, I don't know, really supported you and helped you make it.
Yeah. I don't know, you know, it felt a little bit of the way that I think artists generally feel, which is kind of a little bit of both. Like, no, let me not say no, because some artists do know that they have community, but I think artists that I know, so I'm not saying all artists, but most artists that I've interacted with, it's like all of us have a level of imposter syndrome. It's like that shit was done and it's not like, you know, my life is the same. You know, essentially it was like I finished this album and I felt accomplished in that I had finished it, but I remember being disappointed with the results of releasing that. And I'm like, you know, I'm still at my grandma's house. I'm still in a very similar position to when I was making this.
Oh, you were disappointed when it came out?
Not immediately, but, you know, a year removed and I'm still at home and I'm not playing shows and I'm not, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't immediately.
All the touring you wanted to do that literally manifested. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, all of the shit. Like, I wanted to tour ComfortZone.
Yeah.
Which we made happen, but it was like having to fucking finesse the shit. Like, imagine, like, and this was a great lesson for me because I was so young. Like, I'm talented. This shit is gonna be a walk in the fucking park. I'm gonna put out great music and the world will be my oyster. And when that didn't happen, I was confused. I'm like, damn, well, what's the next step? And it's cool because it's kind of like you keep running into that in some version of this shit. It's like you always gotta kind of rebuild it and, you know,
You're
keep
trying to level up.
Type shit.
Yeah.
Well, also, it especially felt like that in Chicago in that era, that you would just drop a hot project and, you know, the buzz would be
Bro,
all over
niggas
there.
was blowing the fuck up. I was like, why am I still at home, bro?
But it's now interesting to look back and see your longevity compared to like maybe some other ones that maybe took a faster route but not got there. One thing for me, another thing I guess that was really cool to hear during the oral history and interviewing all your different collaborators was, admittedly, I'm more of a person that leans into like lyrics and the songwriting. Everybody just praised your producer mindset and how meticulous you were about, you know, everything sounding exactly how you wanted to sound, and that you had a vision early on. And they were like, he knew exactly what he wanted to make, and he was pushing it all. He was pushing all of us to make that.
Right.
And I had just never truly, I guess, acknowledge how hard you went as a producer in this project, but it's like a lot. There's Whip and there's Butter, where it's more about like the sonics and the vibes of it, the feeling, than the lyrics. But is that something that, you know, you also were like, damn, I'm just as good of a producer as I am a lyricist, or did it take time to put together?
I thought I was at the time. In like retrospect, I don't think I was as good yet as I thought I was. But part of my wanting to work with the people that I was able to work with was like, y'all can do something that I can't do. But it's like being a producer and an artist is like the best thing. Like I always try to inspire people who like are artists to like at least take your hand and try producing, because it's like it's so much easier to describe the sound that you want to when you're working with a collaborator. It's so much easier to be like, you know what, is it cool if I just do what I want it to sound like real quick? Like, and I think generally if people have a problem with that, it's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be working together. Because I think like at the end of the day, it's like it's our music that we're working on together, but like I'm the like artist, so I would like it to be what I want it to be, and we can collab on it. And it's really gonna be like something that neither of us could have imagined. But I think direction is where I look at myself as a producer. Like I can guide the direction of something to know that I want it to be something like this. And sometimes I think my other collaborators is like, help me paint this, but this is what I want to paint though, to be clear. And that was the first time I had ever made music like that. So it was like really cool to just see people be receptive and to let me cook.
Do you feel equal parts rapper and producer now?
In my heart, I do, but I haven't been spending as much time producing lately. So it's like, it's hard for me to claim it like as proudly as I would like to. It's always a part of me. So I'm always producing. Like I made a beat yesterday, but you know, it's like, I don't know, that might even be an example of that imposter syndrome shit, where I'm like, I literally was doing this shit yesterday. What the fuck am I talking about? Yeah, I guess so. No, I don't. I feel like more of an artist than a producer, and I think it's because.
What do you mean by artist? I feel like that encompasses
vocalist, rapper, whatever
It doesn't encompass producer.
Artists can,
but not for you.
To me, it can encompass just human. Like it's like, right, I'm an artist. Like, but I think in context of the conversation, we was like artist versus producer. So, you know, I'm just playing within the
I said rapper
the lines
versus producer,
of the game.
That's fine.
You said what?
I said rapper versus producer.
I feel like more of a rapper than a producer, because I think more people know that I rap than know that I produce. And sometimes you just fall into people's perception of you by accident. Like you don't even realize it's happening. But it's like, nigga, I'm just as much of a producer, but I be having to remind myself that.
Oh yeah. No, totally. On Whip though, you try more of like a R&B melody. As a homage to your dad, Chandler, who's an R&B singer. Why was that important to you?
Because I could do that. I was like, I don't know. It to me, I was like that's what I grew up in. Like the chord progressions and the way he does his vocals and stuff. Like I grew up and he always had new music playing, and it would have these chords and these melodies and harmonies and shit. And it just felt like a way to show a part of me. And that was actually a goal of mine. On all of my albums, I failed because I didn't end up doing it, but only because I forgot about it. But to just have one song on every album where I didn't rap. So I remembered that again. So on a new album, I did it, but you know, I went a few without doing it because I forgot.
You have to wait 10 years.
Literally 10-year anniversary. We back.
But it's fun on Whip. On the chorus, you play with ad libs a lot, which, you know, doesn't really remind me of R&B song necessarily. So it's still there.
I was listening to Fat Trail a lot at the time.
Oh, okay.
And Great ad libs.
Yeah.
Speaking a little bit into the lyrics, which is what I guess excites me the most, I thought it was interesting that in Comfort Food you speak about my life is literally on wax from Whacker to back out west. But when we were talking during the interview, you were mentioning that you've become more private as you've grown older. I think a lot of like your fan base, you've been really authentic and you haven't been like afraid to show your full self. How do you reconcile now, those two aspects where I also feel like you naturally just want to share your story, but also know that, maybe not everything is meant to be public?
Yeah, I think crazier and crazier shit just started happening. And also like I'm like a really I'm gonna say like it's always hard to describe myself, but Smino said it once to me. You the most consistently inconsistent person that I know. And I feel that way when I think of like my social capacity. Like I'm like a real introvert, but at the same time I could be the opposite given the right circumstance. So it's like I don't know which version of myself is gonna show up when I enter most rooms. And I just gotta be cool with whatever the result is. You feel me? But I don't remember the question, but I know I shared that for a reason. Like it feels related. No?
Reconciling, being more private as you grow up.
Private as I grow older. Okay, so yeah. I don't know. I think, okay, I remember where I was going. So a part of sharing so much of myself has complete strangers knowing me or feeling like they know me. And, I don't know which version I am when I'm in these interactions sometimes. And I'm like, why the fuck are you talking to me right now? Like I'm uncomfortable. And sometimes I'm like, hey, right on, I appreciate, what I'm saying? Like I don't know. I think people expect sometimes that with certain recognition for something that you become a different person. And it's like, I'm still fighting the same battle that I was fighting during ComfortZone. You feel me? Like it didn't just magically heal itself. I'm still like 50-50 on how much I want to engage. And to be honest, I think the older I got, it became easier to just fall back a little bit. Like, I don't know.
You don't feel like you have to present yourself a certain way when you're in the rooms?
I wouldn't necessarily word it that way. So I guess I would say no to that. But it's kind of like, it's more like being comfortable with whichever way you're presenting yourself. Because it's like, some days I don't got it. And if I don't got it, you can't have it. Like, because if I had it, I would give it to myself. You can't have it.
Well, that's really interesting because I feel like on the whole project, you struggle with self-acceptance. Like other people accepting you, but also you accepting yourself.
Ooh.
Oh, you want me to?
No, I mean,
okay.
Fine with me, yeah. Yeah.
So I guess, but I just feel like
challenging. That's very hard to do.
I mean, I think you did it at a young age. At least on wax.
Yeah, maybe on wax. Maybe on wax. Self-acceptance.
But how was? I mean, did you use music as a tool for self-acceptance, and how?
Absolutely. This what I was talking about. I just posted a video a few days ago, and I was talking about like rapping from a percentage of future you. It's like on these songs, I'm the person that I'm becoming. I'm not the person that I am. I'm the person that I want to grow into. And I'm writing certain lyrics as I'm talking to myself. And I'm doing my best to give myself what I feel like I need to hear.
Do you feel like you still rap like the person you want to become, or are you rapping as you are now?
It's always a mixture of both. It's always a mixture of both. It's this sprinkled in. It's sugar and spice, everything nice. You feel me? Like it's like a little bit of this, a little bit of the future, a little bit of the past.
But do you feel more present in your music? Is that important to you?
being present in music, I could say yes, but I don't believe that. It's like yes sounds like it would be the correct answer, so I really want to say yes, but at the same time, like it's like I've written great songs, I feel like, while just being reflecting on the past or being stuck in a certain moment or being very far ahead. Like, it's like, I think you can use any, like, that's just a time period. That's like just what's the timepiece on the movie we watching. Like, it's like 1400, like, it's cool. It's still like valid. It's still like shit that you could connect with or like, you know, find from it.
I really, again, when we were doing this video series, we were talking a lot about the sequencing and how, you know, it ebbs and flows and like energy and feeling. You start really strong and like upbeat, and then you get to like Welcome Home. It's a little bit more down. When you get towards the end with Comfort Food and then Tell You and then United Center, in my head, it's almost like, you know, Comfort Food, you say in the song, like, I accept myself for me. And then the second half, which is, I think, one of the best like verses in Legit, when he has a say that shit to a floppy disk. That's really great.
Yeah, he crazy for that one.
But you got that confidence in it, and you're showing it, and then Tell You it's a little bit more happier. And like in my head, United Center is almost like the rolling credits, you know, after like
yeah. That's what it feels like.
the journey returns or whatever. Is that something that you were thinking about as you were putting the album together? Like, these songs got to go together. These songs got to put in the middle.
For me, the songs usually tell me where they go. Like United Center, the first version of United Center wasn't the outro to Comfort Zone, but it's like at some point, it's like I always compare it to doing Sudoku, which I don't do Sudoku, but I've tried to do them in the past, and I know it's like it's like there's something missing. And you have to figure out what's missing, but you label it. Like, I'm like, I know I need an outro. I know I have this. I know this can be produced in a way that makes it the outro. Like, it can fit the descriptor. And I don't remember how that song actually went from my version to the version that it is. I know that was around the time I was meeting like more producers, Naima. That was one of the first things that I had worked on with that group of producers. But yeah, I think the track list is probably the thing that takes maybe I'm not gonna say it take the most time. It take the most tries. The track list is like something to be solved. It's like doing a Rubik's Cube almost. A puzzle. It feels like a puzzle.
I love to see, and you've done this, but like when rappers put a picture on IG and it's like a whiteboard and there's the names of the songs and you can see they've been erased and moved around, you know,
Yeah.
some blur stuff. That's really cool. As you've been rehearsing ahead of the show and just like, you know, thinking about the 10 years, has any of what you've like gone back to influenced the current album that you're working on?
I want to answer this question really in-depthly, but I think without having context for what's actually on the new album, is kind of like it won't matter until people hear it. But to me, this is I think everything following Bucket List has been a response to my circumstance. It's been a response to I'm looking at the pieces on the board and going, this is how I feel, or this is what I want to create. Whereas Comfort Zone was like me going, it's like light bulb, like this is the album that I'm going to create. So for me, this feels like my first time in a while having a light bulb, like this is what I'm going to make. So I think it does something that Comfort Zone does well, which to me is like, each song is like its own scene, kind of. It's like walking into a room and it got, this room has this furniture and, the kitchen is over there. But then you walk into the next room and it's like, it's backwards. It's like the bathroom is upstairs and the kitchen, it's like each room is its own scene though. And I think on the new music, that's like really clear to me.
Well, what do you think is similar between those two albums, and like what was lost in between?
Some of the like a song like For Y'all, to me, right? It feels like a nod almost to like a very classic Chicago sound, like some of the like for me when I was doing Comfort Zone, Late Registration was like my North Star. But I knew I didn't want to tell none of the same stories. Like, I'm working with No ID now. So it's like I can make some of the texture that I was so like influenced by just nigga at my disposal. Like it's like we got so much shit where I'm like, damn, I don't know. It's like, it's really cool. Like, especially to be like, a kid from Chicago and like be doing that. Like, I don't know. Like I said, it's kind of hard to talk about it without being able to talk specifically. I would love to go track number 5. Yeah. Nigga, this is like, like this reminds me of Comfort Zone because it, you hear how to snare, like, but it's.
We can do a follow-up.
Yeah, let's do a follow-up. Let's do a follow-up.
How did you feel, or do you remember how you felt when you finished Comfort Zone?
Yeah. I felt, man, that was one of those, like, it was a studio, LPZ studio. That's where we finished at. And I had a CD. It felt like it was the, you ever watch any of those, like, music, like, biopics where motherfucker got their records and it's like they got their masters after, like, they finally got them bitches? Like, I'm thinking of the Miles Davis biopic where this motherfucker was ready to shoot niggas and shit to get his masters back, but he had them bitches. And to me, when I got that CD that had all of the songs printed, mixed, mastered, it's like the Pulp Fiction suitcase where it's like, it's just gold with the sound effect. That's, I don't know if I've ever felt so accomplished in my life, to be completely honest. Like, I stayed up, I don't know. It's like elation. It's like though. Pure like, wow, you did it. Yeah.
I mean, you really did do that shit. And it's still a classic. It remains a classic.
I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Is there a verse that you're really proud of now that, you went back on it?
Tree is like, I didn't know Tree at the time for real. And I got him on my album. So I was like really excited to, I don't know. I'm proud of, like, it's shit on there that I'm not proud of, but I think they all sound good still, which is like, phew, that's a relief. 10 years ago, it's like sometimes shit be kind of cringy 10 years later sometimes. It's like, damn, this is what we was listening to? This is what we was talking about? So to me, it was like, I was listening to that shit kind of relieved. Like, all right, it's not too bad. Like, it's, it's worse 10-year anniversary albums.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned that when we talked a few months ago, and it was funny because not comparable a lot at all, but I get Facebook notifications like 10 years ago you posted this and it's the worst shit I've ever seen. It's
always the worst.
And I get so embarrassed. And you're saying that, but you're saying that about one of my favorite albums. It's like, no, you're like different levels of not a Facebook post,
Right.
So
I asked you this after I heard your new stuff.
Yeah.
And I asked you where's Chicago in your album, and I don't know, we had a conversation about it.
We did.
But how do you feel like Chicago appears in your music now that you don't live here anymore? Because obviously Comfort Zone is so macro, right? Micro, sorry, clearly.
I think, man, some of the shit that I just observe, like, I'm in another state, but my observations are still very much like, what the fuck is that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's still like the perspective is that of someone from here. So the things that I think I'm commenting on, and I'm still talking about my life, which still mostly has taken place here. So I think there's a balance of where I'm at, where I'm going, and where I've been, obviously. And then I think in just the sonic DNA of it, like, it's like I'm working with one of the Chicago pioneers as far as the music that came from here. So I think it's a very Chicago album to me. And it's also like I miss being here, so it's a little homesick too, where it's like, to me, it's very much a Chicago album, despite being recorded in LA, which, like I said, ComfortZone, some of that shit was done in the Bay. Care for Me, the whole album was done in the Bay. Few Good Things, a lot of that was done in LA. Like, it's like they kind of always kind of been, I don't know, sometimes leaving Chicago makes observing Chicago easier because you get to see something different. So you know what's unique about
that makes
Chicago,
sense.
you know?
Yeah. Anything else? Actually, I had a thought. Does anybody have any questions for Saba?
Hey, I'm Renzel, owner of Studio Shapes. How you doing? I do. Can I say? Well, why are you looking at me like that, Tom? Can I like gather myself? All right. Can I say like really what most inspired you for real is as a artist, producer? Because I know like there's students, like we're producers and we students of the game, you know what I'm saying? Like, can you give me some knowledge, some game on like what kind of like got you right into making this? Because ComfortZone was something that people like, then you made like 6 projects before that, you know what I'm saying? But like what really like took you there, like, was a switch, you know what I'm saying?
All right. I'll try to I feel like to understand that, you'll have to understand my upbringing. I live with my mom's family. I live with my or lived with my mom's mom and dad. My dad was in music. His younger brother is in music. Their father is in music. Their mother is in music. You know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like, I seen it before. I seen motherfuckers turn on the switch before. I seen this song start off as a draft and be elevated, and now it's like, damn, I don't even recognize it, but that shit is beautiful. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I seen that happen. So I had reference to know if I was doing it or not doing it. And I think that, like, it's like you can't unsee some shit once you see it. Like, I've been exposed to certain information growing up. And while I didn't live with them, I think the time that I did spend with them, like, I was getting gems dropped on me. Like, I was 9 with, like, my granddad had a studio in his basement, and he'll be like, Granddad, how do you da-da-da-da-da? And he was just like, kind of like, you know, kind of a hard ass about it. Like, read the book. Right, yeah. It's a book in front of you for a reason. Like, if you want to know how to do something, open the book. Yeah. And I don't know, I think, you know, dropping projects, like, I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted it to sound, in my opinion at the time, as good as anybody. So the mix was important. You know, all of these things that have never been important to me are now important because I'm like, I seen motherfuckers mix before. Like, you know.
Mix it yourself.
Right. And I know what mine sound like. Yeah. So it's like, if it don't sound better than mine, we doing it wrong. Right. You know, but I don't know. I could go on forever, but that's like when in terms of like it's just information that I felt like blessed to have had access to, you know.
Alejandro, you want to do?
Yeah, I got a question. My name is Alejandro. I'm a journalist with Real Ones. You mentioned Burnout earlier as being a pivotal video game in your life. So I was just curious, what are your top 5 video games, and if any of them have like played a role in your music?
Man, okay. Yeah. Video games are almost like radio stations. And when I think of video games with great soundtracks, NBA Street Volume 2 was like, I don't know. Them at that time in my life was some of the best beats I had ever heard. I'm a kid, but that was some of the best music that I had heard. Midnight Club Dub Edition had all types of shit that I had never heard. Probably like 2K9, I remember, had like a Danger Doom song on it. It also had this band called Metric on it that became one of my favorite bands. I don't know, 2K, I learned a lot of music from 2K.
Where did Welcome Home, that sample?
That sample, I discovered that band playing Grand Theft Auto 5. They had a song, the Hicks, they had a song on Grand Theft Auto 5. And I went to just listen to more of their music, and Welcome Home, the sample for that was one of the songs that I heard. What else am I forgetting? Oh, Tony Hawk Underground had, bro, it had Nas The World Is Yours on it. Like I don't want to be that guy, but yeah, I'm a kid. I found Nas The World Is Yours because of Tony Hawk. Like, you know, yeah. Was that 5? It was 5 enough. If it was 4, you can count 2K for 2 because I play a lot of 2K.
So, yeah. Thank you.
We could do one more, I think. Oh, okay. 4 people. Can you pass the mic? Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. Okay. Hello. This has been great, guys. Like, really amazing of y'all to do this, to like commemorate a fantastic album. I'm curious, actually, just like you were mentioning the media landscape at the time earlier, like how the blogs would like pick up an album in 2014 and like somebody could rise to superstardom really quickly. But like, what was your impression of like the media landscape back then? Like, what kind of platforms were you like trying to get
I
coverage
thought
in
you
that
got
same sort of way?
posted to a blog and then you was on. That was it. That was all I was aiming for. Like, if the blogs post me, I'm good forever.
Did you know the blogs back then?
Nah. I took I seen Alex here. I took Alex's class, and I built a relationship with him. And I had I had one of my OGs from where I'm from, who worked with my uncle, had a great relationship with Andrew Barber. This like 2012 probably. And he used to do like a writing segment like every few weeks. Big Wiz is his name. He used to go by Fat Boy Fresh sometimes. But this essentially like, he like one of my uncles damn near. And he was working like with Drew, but they wasn't posting us. And he was kind of like, look, you gotta post this nigga if you gonna fuck with me. Like, this shit you need to be rocking with. And, you know, it was just cool, like, having people go to bat for you like that. Like, it's like, you know, the strongest thing we got is word of mouth, you know. So I think those two, like Ruby Hornet and Fake Sure, especially like in Chicago in 2012, is like, shit, you know, that's, our goal was always to start here. You know, I'm like, before you could get, I'm trying to think of what the other blog, like Ill Roots and like Two Dope Boys and like all of those blogs at that time, like The Fader and all of that. Like, it's like, before you could get all of that, it's like, how you don't got your crib? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I don't know. It was super important, like the role that just blogs played in amplifying and sharing the music, you know? Absolutely. Thank you.
What up, bro?
What's good, gang?
Shit, man. I got a lot of young artists in here, so just kind of wanted to see what would your best advice be to navigating this world that you live in. You know what I mean, with the music and everything that's going on. What would be, a starting point and the best route that people would take?
Nigga, I don't know. I don't fucking know.
Man, this might be terrible advice and it might be excellent advice. Believe in yourself and don't listen to shit nobody says. Don't listen to shit nobody tell you. Just go for it. Jump. You can always start over. I don't know. It's so many bits of advice. I don't know. It could just look too many different ways for me to even be comfortable giving. Like, you could be doing some shit that I think is the worst idea in the world, and I'm the one that's wrong about it. Like, you feel me? Like, I'm not the nigga to get advice from, but hopefully, it's certain things that's non-negotiable, like the glow, the spark, the inspiration, the source behind what you're doing. You can't negotiate that for the work that it's gonna take to really make a career out of this shit. It's not gonna just be the fun part of it. So it's like that part non-negotiable. And if you choose to still do it, knowing that you're gonna have to take the bullshit that come with it, you good to go. Shit.
What's good, bro?
What up?
My name Ron. And so I was finna ask something kind of similar because there's a lot of my homies in here too. We all making music. We all trying to come up and shit. And I think just like directly to the thing you just said, a lot of the time it's about not knowing and building a foundation off of not knowing. And you spoke a lot about like not knowing what's about to happen. Like even now you at a point where you done seen accomplishments and shit. But I was just wondering if you could kind of speak to the process of pulling motivation from not knowing. You know what I'm saying? It's like we artists, we designers, so we making it look like how we want to look, but it's like, people around you might not see it the same way and all types of different shit. So it's like, how do you pull motivation from not knowing?
That question made me want to go full philosopher mode because I'm like,
come on, let's get it, man. Lock in.
When do you know? You never fucking know. I never know. Like in the next 5 minutes, literally anything could happen. Why not imagine the thing that you want to happen? Like, cause we don't know, period. Like, I don't know. It's exhausting work to constantly have to remind yourself that what you want to do is available to you, is possible to you, is, like that shit is exhausting. Like you the positive voice in your brain, and it's a muscle. So it's like, work it out, get strong with it, go to the gym and hit the mental gymnastics, because that's what this shit gonna require. It's gonna require that delusion. It's gonna require everybody looking at you like you're crazy for pursuing what you're pursuing in your life. Everybody looking at you like, why the fuck would you be doing this when you can do this and this is way easier? But you gotta have that conviction to where you like, I'm gonna do this anyway, and people not gonna understand it, and you gotta be cool being misunderstood. And at the end of the day, everybody misunderstood anyway. Like, niggas not gonna understand you regardless of what you do, so you might as well do what you want to do. Within reason,
Within reason. Appreciate you.
One more question, Demetrius.
What up, bro? So, one question I had, I didn't know I was gonna be the last one, so that's kind of crazy. But how does the music that you make solo defer or complement the music you make with your brothers?
Man, because my brother's a fucking psychopath, man. Like, do you know who my brother is? Nah, man. I think the Pivot Gang versus Saba versus Saba and No ID versus Ghetto Sage versus any version of like the areas that I show up in. It's always gonna be it's like me but through a lens. It's like looking you know, there's you could be looking at the same thing, but just changing the lens will make the image different. And that's how I think about working in all of these different groups, especially within Pivot, because it's like it's 4 of us that are rappers. You know, it's four rappers. So we gonna always have different ideas, different directions, different verses, different messages, different points to make. And I think there's a level of freedom to it where it's like, because we know that that's the gig. Like, it's like, be free here. Cause ain't no God in 4 motherfuckers in one way. Like, it's like, even when we on point, when we having conversations like this, what we about to talk about, everybody's perspective is so different. Everybody, like, none of us are really that similar in terms of how we view the world. Despite being from similar backgrounds, despite being from similar areas, we still move about it differently. So we have different things to offer, and I think they complement each other. But yeah, it's just like it's the difference of doing a group project versus doing your own project. It's like, you are in a group, nigga. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's like the science fair. Like, you know, sometimes when you in a group, the work get done and you like, damn, is it my turn? Like, you know, I don't know if that ever happened to you. You seem like you did really good in school. I don't know if I'm projecting, but you know, sometimes the motherfuckers you was in a group with did the work already, and you just show up and get your grade. Sometimes you do hella work. Sometimes it's like very even. Like, it could look like anything, you know. Yes, sir.
Well, thank y'all for tuning into a Comfort Zone retrospective. Thank you to our audience, Saba, the These Days and Private Stock, and Kismet Radio teams, Studio Shapes, and Christella.
Hey.